Hey, welcome back to Adult Brain Audiobook channel here. I'm Graham, one of the narrators. I'm doing another experimental live read. Oh, something just glitched out on the time there. This is a book from 1871 by John Baldwin. He was a politician and an author and a journalist about Ancient America in Notes on American Archaeology by John Baldwin from 1871. So we're going to go through like chapter 1 today, the Mound Builders. Probably not the whole chapter. It's quite a long chapter. I'll just read for a bit and see how it goes. There's lots of pictures. There's like 70 pictures in this book. I thought it would be interesting to show what they were talking about in the 1800s. Then the other chapters are like antiquity of the mound builders. Who were they? Mexico and Central America. Mexico and Central America again, and antiquity of the ruins, whence this civilization. I'll yeah, quite a bit more. I'll go through it as we go. So yeah, I'm gonna just show how it was done. This is raw and rough. I'm editing as I go, so I'm just gonna show you the process here, and I'm just reading from this PDF. I'm gonna share my entire screen over here. I got a new mic stand, so it's a bit it's a bit more hands-free when I'm sitting in this position. And hopefully hopefully it works. Okay, so let's just jump into it. I'm going to make sure that this is recording properly here. I'm using a different browser, hoping that makes a difference as well. I don't want this record level to drop too low because that's for the audio for the actual book. So here we go. Chapter 1: The Mound Builders. One of the most learned writers on American antiquities, a Frenchman, speaking of discoveries in Peru, exclaims, "America is to be again discovered. We must remove the veil in which Spanish politics has sought to bury its ancient civilization." In this case, quite as much is due to the ignorance, indifference, unscrupulous greed, and religious fanaticism of the Spaniards as to Spanish politics. The gold hunting marauders who subjugated Mexico and Peru could be robbers and destroyers, but they were not qualified in any respect to become intelligent students of American antiquity. What a select company of investigators, such as could be organized in our time, might have done in Mexico and Central America, for instance, 350 years ago, is easily understood. In what they did and in what they failed to do, the Spaniards who went got to redo that guy. Let me spread this out a little bit and chop it off there. Scroll up while I can. In what they did and in what they failed to do, the Spaniards who went there acted in strict accordance with such character as they did. And yet we are not wholly without obligation to some of the more intelligent Spaniards connected with the conquest. There are existing monuments of an American ancient history which invite study, and most of which might, doubtless, have been studied more successfully in the first part of the 16th century, before nearly all the old books of Central America had been destroyed by Spanish fanaticism, than at present. Remains of ancient civilizations, differing to some extent in degree and character, are found in three great sections of the American continent: the west side of South America, between Chile and the first or second degree of north latitude, Central America, and Mexico, and the valleys of the Mississippi and the Ohio. These regions have all been explored to some extent, not completely, but sufficiently to show the significance and importance of their archaeological remains, most of which were already mysterious antiquities when the continent was discovered by Columbus. I propose to give some account of these antiquities, not for the edification of those already learned in American archaeology, but for general readers who have not made the subject a study. My sketches will begin with the Mississippi Valley and the regions connected with it. The Mound Builders and their works. An ancient and unknown people left remains of settled life and a certain degree of civilization in the valleys of the Mississippi and its tributaries. We have no authentic name for them either as a nation or a race. Therefore, they are called Mound Builders, this name having been suggested by an important class of their works. All right, I'm going to stop here and just go to this picture quickly. spread it out a little bit. Just take a quick look at this picture here. Let's see, whoops. There we go. The Great Mound near Miamisburg. Kind of a rough sketch, but still, let's see if I can get this window back to normal. How does this work? Let me just check here. Go back that way. There we go. Check the record level. 44 seems to be where it's going to be. Here we go. Prominent among the remains by which we know that such a people once inhabited that region are artificial mounds constructed with intelligence and great labor. Most of them are terraced and truncated pyramids. In shape, they are usually square or rectangular, but sometimes hexagonal or octagonal. And the higher mounds appear to have been constructed with winding stairways on the outside leading to their summits. Many of these structures have a close resemblance to the teocallis of Mexico. They differ considerably in size. The Great Mound at Grave Creek. Just dropping down again. Okay. They differ. Let's bring this up a little bit and see if it sticks up there a little bit better. The Great Mound. They differ considerably in size. The Great Mound at Grave Creek, West Virginia, is 70 feet high and 1,000 feet in circumference at the base. A mound in Miamisburg, Ohio, is 68 feet high and 852 feet in circumference. The Great Truncated Pyramid at Cahokia, Illinois, is 700 feet long, 500 wide, and 90 in height. Generally, however, these mounds range from 6 to 30 feet high. In the lower valley of the Mississippi, they are usually larger in horizontal extent with less elevation. Figure 2 represents the Great Mound near Miamisburg, Ohio, which may be compared with a similar structure at Mayapan, Yucatan, figure 34. Oh, the cat doesn't want to be on my lap anymore. I better switch this up. All right. At Mayapan, Yucatan, figure 34. Okay, check. While I'm stopped, let's just scroll down and take a look at this figure 3 square mound near Marietta. Looks like 158 feet. Yeah, that's the one that we're just about to read about. Figure 3 shows a square mound near Marietta, Ohio. There have been great many conjectures in regard to the purposes for which these mounds were built, some of them rather fanciful. I find it most reasonable to believe that the mounds in this part of the continent were used precisely as similar structures were used in Mexico and Central America. The lower mounds, or most of them, if the lower mounds, or most of them, must have been constructed as foundations of the more important edifices of the mound building people. Many of the great buildings erected on such pyramidal foundations at Palenque, Uxmal, and elsewhere in that region have not disappeared because they were built of hewn stone laid in mortar. For reasons not difficult to understand, the mound builders beginning their works on the lower Mississippi constructed such edifices of wood or some other perishable material. Therefore, not a trace of them remains. The higher mounds, with broad, flat summits reached by flights of steps on the outside, are like the Mexican teocallis, or temples. In Mexico and Central America, these structures were very numerous. They are described as solid pyramidal masses of earth, cased with brick or stone, level at the top, and furnished with ascending ranges of steps on the outside. The resemblance is striking, and the most reasonable explanation seems to be that in both regions, mounds of this class were intended for the same uses. So here is figure 4, works at Cedar Bank, Ohio. 100 foot, what does that say? Scale 100 foot to 1 inch. So This would be like, looks like 400 feet by 600 feet type thing. That's near the Scioto River, I guess. We'll scroll up. This is going to be a little tough to read these. Figure 4 shows the works at Cedar Bank, Ohio, enclosing a mound. The mound within the enclosure is 245 feet long by 150 broad. Figure 5 shows a ground of mounds in Washington County, Mississippi, some of which are connected by means of causeways. Another class of these antiquities consists of enclosures formed by heavy embankments of earth and stone. I'll take a look at another one here. This is Figure 5, works in Washington County, Mississippi. Check. There is nothing to explain these constructions so clearly as to leave no room for conjecture and speculation. It has been suggested that some of them may have been intended for defense, others for religious purposes. A portion of them, it may be, encircled villages or towns. In some cases, the ditches or fossils were on the inside, in others on the outside. But no one can fully explain why they were made. We know only that they were. That's going to have to be redo that. They were. We know. So let me cut that out here, and then I'm just going to go back up. Let me finish off the verbiage, and then we'll look at the picture. We know only that they were. We know only that they were prepared intelligently with great labor for human uses. Okay, let's just go up and see this picture here. I'm going to spread it over and then pull that out. Works at Hopeton, Ohio. Bunch of round circular mounds with some stuff in the middle there. See if this worked okay. If I go back that way. Yeah, I tightened it a little too much. I'll have to spread it out a bit there. Okay, where was I? Lines of embankment must be. Human uses. Lines of embankment varying from 5 to 30 feet in height and enclosing from 1 to 50 acres are very common, while enclosures containing from 100 to 200 acres are not infrequent, and occasional works are found enclosing as many as 400 acres. Figures 6 and 7 give views of the Hopeton Works, 4 miles north of Chillicothe, Ohio. Chillicothe? I better just check the pronunciation of that one. I didn't catch that. Let's see. See what my assistant says about that. Chillicothe. 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 I don't know. That doesn't ring true. Figures 6 and 7. Chillicothe. Check. What's going on? Check. Figures 6 and 7 give views of the Hopeton Works, 4 miles north of Chillicothe, Ohio. Combinations of the square and circle are common in these ancient works, and the figures are always perfect. I'll just stop it, take a quick look at this. Scale 700 feet to 1 inch. That's pretty massive. Wow, look at that. Circle and square. Principal figures of the Hopeton Works. All right. This perfection of the figures proves, as Squire and Davis remark, that the builders possessed a standard of measurement and had a means of determining angles. About 100 enclosures and 50. That's not right. I'll redo that. About 100 enclosures and 500 mounds have been examined in Ross County, Ohio. About 100 enclosures and 500 mounds have been examined in Ross County, Ohio. The number of mounds in the whole state is estimated at over 10,000, and the number of enclosures at more than 1,500. The great number of these ancient remains in the regions occupied by the mound builders is really surprising. They are more numerous in the regions on the lower Mississippi and the Gulf of Mexico than anywhere else. And here, in some cases, sun dried brick was used in the embankments. One peculiarity of the South is that while the enclosures are generally smaller and comparatively less numerous, there is a greater proportion of low mounds, and these are often larger in extent. Harrison Mound in South Carolina is 480 feet in circumference and 15 feet high. Another is described as 500 feet in circumference at the base, 225 at the summit, and 34 feet high. In a small mound near this, which was opened, there was found an urn holding 46 quartz, and also a considerable deposit of beads and shell ornaments very much decomposed. Broad terraces of various heights, mounds with several stages, elevated passages, and long avenues, and aqueducts or artificial ponds are common at the south. Figure 8 shows the remains of a graded way of this ancient people near Piketon, Ohio. I might as well just spend a couple minutes and take a look at it properly. And I'll just have to. How can I? I guess I could probably just do that and then go back. Yeah, that's weird, eh? It doesn't really do it properly. Graded way near Piketon, Ohio. Interesting. And I'll pull that back up into the. There we go, like that. And then that should do it. This is a weird book to do this on, but I think it'll be okay. At Seltzertown. Check. At Seltzertown, Mississippi, there is a mound 600 feet long, 400 wide, and 40 feet high. The area of its level summit measures 4 acres. There was a ditch around it, and near it are smaller mounds. Mr. J.R. Bartlett says, on the authority of Dr. M.W. Dickinson, the north side of this mound is supported by a wall of sun-dried brick 2 feet thick, filled with grass, rushes, and leaves. Dr. Dickinson mentions angular tumuli with corners still quite perfect and formed of large bricks bearing the impression of human hands. In Louisiana, near the Trinity, there is a great enclosure partially faced with sun-dried bricks of a large size. And in this neighborhood, ditches and artificial ponds have been examined. In the southern states, these works appear to assume a closer resemblance to the mound work of Central America. The results of intelligent exploration and study of these antiquities is stated as follows. Although possessing throughout certain general points of resemblance going to establish a kindred origin, these works nevertheless resolve themselves into 3 grand geographical divisions, which present in many respects striking contrasts, yet so gradually merge into each other that it is impossible to determine where one series terminates and another begins. On the upper lakes, and to a certain extent in Michigan, Iowa, and Missouri, but particularly in Wisconsin, the outlines of the enclosures, elsewhere more regular in form, were designed in the forms of animals, birds, serpents, and even men, appearing on the surface of the country like huge relievos. The embankment of an irregular enclosure in Adams County, Ohio, is described as follows by Squire and Davis. Mr. Squire having made the drawing of it for the work published by the Smithsonian Institution. It is in the form of a serpent upward of 1,000 feet in length, extending in graceful curves and terminating in a triple coil at the tail. The embankment constituting try that again. Excuse me. Check. The embankment constituting this figure is more than 5 feet high, with a base of 30 feet wide at the center of the body, diminishing somewhat toward the head and tail. The neck of the figure is stretched out and slightly curved. The mouth is wide open and seems in the act of swallowing or ejecting an oval figure which rests partly within its distended jaws. This oval is formed by an embankment 4 feet high and is perfectly regular in outline. It's transverse and can. Let me just start that sentence again. This oval is. I wonder what the snake is spitting out, or is it eating something? This oval is formed by an embankment 4 feet high and is perfectly regular in outline, its transverse and conjugate diameters being respectively 160 and 80 feet. The combined figure has been regarded as a symbolical illustration of the Oriental cosmological idea of the serpent and the egg. But however this may be, little doubt can exist of the symbolical character of the monument. Figure 9 gives a view of this work. No symbolic device is more common among the antiquities of Mexico and Central America than the form of the serpent, and it was sometimes reproduced in part in architectural constructions. One of the old books, giving account of a temple dedicated to Quetzalcoatl, says, "It was circular in form, and the entrance represented the mouth of a serpent, opened in a frightful manner and extremely terrifying to those who approached it for the first time. On the Ohio and its tributaries, and farther south, where the mounds are numerous, the enclosures have more regular forms. And in the Ohio Valley, very often their great extent has incited speculation." I'll just stop there and take a look at that serpent mound. Wow, that's pretty cool. Great Serpent, Adams County, Ohio. Interesting that just these sketches go back to, like, I guess he sketched all these by hand. Go back to like 1870s. All right, where were we? So at Newark. Record level's still up there. Okay, here we go. At Newark, Ohio, when first discovered, they were spread over an area more than 2 miles square and still showed more than 12 miles of embankment from 2 to 20 feet high. Farther south, as already stated, the enclosures are fewer and smaller, or to speak more exactly, the great enclosures and high mounds are much less common than low truncated pyramids and pyramidal platforms or foundations with dependent works. I'll just stop there. We'll take a quick one at this before I have to slide down. Circleville. Okay. Fortified Hill, Butler County, Ohio. That's pretty cool. All right, here we go. Passing up the valley. Passing up the valley, it is found that Marietta, Newark, Portsmouth, Chillicothe, Circleville, Ohio, St. Louis, Missouri, and Frankfort, Kentucky were favorite seats of the Mound Builders. This leads one of the most intelligent investigators to remark that the centers of population are now where they were when the mysterious race of Mound Builders existed. There is, however, this difference. The remains indicate that their most populous and advanced communities were at the south. Figure 10 shows a fortified hill in Butler County, Ohio. Among those who have been, let's see here. Redo that. Among those who have examined and described remains of the Mound Builders, Messrs. Squire and Davis rank first in importance because they have done most to give a particular and comprehensive account of them. Their great work, published by the Smithsonian Institution, must be regarded as the highest authority, and those who desire to study the whole subject more in detail will find that work indispensable. Except they hid the giants when they did this. I bet you there's no talk of giants in this book. Want to make a bet? This is the first chapter. Let's see if there's giants in this 200 pages. The extent of their settlements. Careful study of what is shown in the many reports on these ancient remains seems plainly to authorize the conclusion that the Mound Builders entered the country at the south and began their settlements near the Gulf. Here they must have been very numerous, while their works at every point on the limit of their distribution, north, east, and west, indicate a much less numerous border population. Remains of their works have been traced through a great extent of country. They are found in West Virginia and are spread through Michigan, Wisconsin, and Iowa to Nebraska. Lewis and Clark reported seeing them on the Missouri River, 1,000 miles above its junction with the Mississippi. But this report has not been satisfactorily verified. They have been observed on the Kansas, Platte, and other remote western rivers, it is said. They are found all over the intermediate and the more southern country, being most numerous in Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, Missouri, Arkansas, Kentucky, Tennessee, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, and Texas. This ancient race seems to have occupied nearly the whole basin of the Mississippi and its tributaries, with the fertile plains along the Gulf, and their settlements were continued across the Rio Grande into Mexico. But toward their eastern, northern, and western limits, the population was evidently smaller, and their occupation of the territory less complete than in the valley of the Ohio, and from that point down to the Gulf. No other united people previous to our time can be supposed to have occupied so large an extent of territory in this part of North America. It has heretofore been stated that remains of this people exist in western New York, but a more intelligent and careful examination shows that the works in western New York are not remains of the mound builders. This is now the opinion of Mr. Squire, formed on personal investigation since the great work of Squire and Davis was published. Their civilization. It is usual to rank the civilized life of the mound builders much below that of the ancient people of Mexico and Central America. This may be correct, for the remains as they now exist appear to justify it. But if all the ancient stonework in Central America, with its finely carved inscriptions and wonderful decorations, had disappeared in the ages before Europeans visited this continent, the difference might not appear to be so great. For then the Central American remains, consisting only of earthworks, truncated pyramids, pyramidal foundations, and their connected works made of earth, would have a closer resemblance to works of the mound builders, to those especially found on the lower Mississippi. On the other hand, if we now had in the Ohio and Mississippi valleys remains of the more important edifices anciently constructed there, the mound builders might be placed considerably higher in the scale of civilization than it has been customary to allow. It can be seen without long study of their works as we know them, that the mound builders had a certain degree of civilization which raised them far above the condition of savages. To make such works possible under any circumstances, there must be settled life, with its accumulations and intelligently organized industry. Fixed habits of useful work directed by intelligence are what barbarous tribes lack most of all. A profound change in this respect is indispensable to the beginning of civilization in such tribes. No savage tribe found here by Europeans could have undertaken such constructions as those of the mound builders. When I was thinking about the Younger Dryas cataclysm and the flood, and if all these mounds that were left were kind of escaped the cataclysm and the floods, and if like where the where the ice sheets were, I bet you there's none of these that were found where we think the ice sheets were at, or where the science thinks they were at. Okay, let's get back to this. People will probably think this is racist nowadays. The wild Indians found in North America lived rudely in tribes. They had only such organization as was required by their nomadic habits and their methods of hunting and fighting. These barbarous Indians gave no sign of being capable of the systematic application to useful industry, which promotes intelligence, elevates the condition of life, accumulates wealth, and undertakes great works. This condition of industry, of which the worn and decayed works of the mound builders are unmistakable monuments, means civilization. Albert Gallatin, who gave considerable attention to their remains, thought their works identical. Let me redo that one. Albert Check, check. Albert Gallatin, who gave considerable attention to their remains, thought their works indicated not only a dense agricultural population, but also a state of society essentially different from that of the Iroquois and Algonquin Indians. Excuse me. He was sure that the people who established such settlements and built such works must have been eminently agricultural. No trace of their ordinary dwellings is left. These must have been constructed of perishable materials which went to dust long before great forests had again covered most of the regions through which they were scattered. Doubtless their dwellings and other edifices were made of wood, and they must have been numerous. It is abundantly evident that there were large towns at such places as Newark, Circleville, and Marietta in Ohio. Figures 11 and 12 give views of works on Paint Creek, Ohio. Their agricultural products may have been similar to many of those found in Mexico, and it is not improbable that the barbarous Indians who afterward occupied the country learned from them the cultivation of maize. So here's the figure 11, stonework in Paint Creek Valley, Ohio. That's kind of a cool sketch. Where's the other sketch? I thought, where's this? This is figure 10, fortified hill again. Maize, that's where I am. Check, check. Their unity as a people, which is everywhere so manifest, must have been expressed in political organization, else it could not have been maintained. And here's figure 12, work on North Fork of Paint Creek. It's got the Chilcothi and the road. Wow, the roads are going through there. And the area is 111 acres. Wow. Pretty big. I lost my place. Maintained. Maintained. Okay, there we go. So I got to scroll all the way down, get started there. It has been ascertained that the circular. Okay, this is going to be tough to scroll through these blank pages and not have to stop and start. So hopefully I can keep it fairly smooth. In the details of their works and in manufactured articles taken from the mounds, there is evidence of considerable civilization. For instance, it has been ascertained that the circular enclosures are perfect circles and the square enclosures perfect squares. They were constructed with a geometrical precision which implies a kind of knowledge in the builders that may be called scientific. Stop there, take a quick look at these pictures that I scrolled by real fast. This is figure 13 and figure 14. Ancient work, Pike County, Ohio. The circle with the square inside with the two gates there. Wow, that's pretty interesting. Wow, that does look so. Well, I mean, these are just sketches, but that's 8 acres there. The elliptical work near Brownsville, Ohio. So I'm just going to go through these right now while I'm here. 15 works near Liberty, Ohio. 2 circles and a big square. 27 acres, 1,700 feet in diameter. 40 acres there and 80 feet diameter there. And this one is figure 16, rectangular work in Randolph County, Indiana. 31 acres. Oh, he's got sections in here too. So there's a section. I don't think I saw sections in other pictures. All right, so we are at figures 13, 14, 15, 16 show some of the okay. Figures 13, 14, 15, 16 show some of the more important works of the mound builders, chiefly in Ohio. Relics of art have been dug from some of the mounds, consisting of a considerable variety of ornaments and implements made of copper, silver, obsidian, porphyry, and greenstone, finely wrought. There are axes, single and double, adzes, chisels, drills, or gravers, lance heads, knives, bracelets, pendants, beads, and the like made of copper, giant bones. Just kidding. There are articles of pottery, elegantly designed and finished, ornaments made of silver, bone, mica from the Alleghenies, and shells from the Gulf of Mexico. The articles made of stone show fine workmanship. Some of them are elaborately carved. Tools of some very hard material must have been required to work the porphyry in this manner. Obsidian is a volcanic product largely used by the ancient Mexicans and Peruvians for arms and cutting instruments. It is found in its natural state nowhere near the It is found in excuse me. It is found in its natural state nowhere nearer the Mississippi Valley than the Mexican mountains of Cerro Gordo. It is found in its natural state nowhere nearer the Mississippi Valley than the Mexican mountains of Cerro Gordo. There appears to be evidence that the mound builders had the art of spinning and weaving, for cloth has been found among their remains. At the meeting of the International Congress of Prehistoric Archaeology held at Norwich, England, in 1868, one of the speakers stated this fact as follows: fragments of charred cloth made of spun fibers have been found in the mounds. A specimen of such cloth taken from a mound in Butler County, Ohio, is in Blackmore Museum, Salisbury. In the same collection are several lumps of burnt clay which formed part of the altar, so called, in a mound in Ross County, Ohio. To this clay, I thought it was going to say to this day. To this clay, a few charred threads are still attached. To this clay, a few charred threads are still attached. Figures 17 and 18 represent specimens of the vases taken from the mounds. Mr. Schoolcraft gives the account of a discovery made in West Virginia. Excuse me. Antique tube telescopic device. In the course of excavations made in 1842 in the easternmost of the three mounds of the Elizabethtown group, several tubes of stone were disclosed, the precise object of which has been the subject of various opinions. The longest measured 12 inches, the shortest 8. 3 of them were carved out of steatite, being skillfully cut and polished. The diameter of the tube externally was 1 inch and 4/10. The bore 8/10 of an inch. This caliber was continued till within 3/8 of an inch of the slight end, when it diminishes to 2/10 of an inch. By placing the eye at the diminished end, the extraneous light is shut from the pupil, and distant objects are more clearly discerned. He points out that the carving and workmanship generally are very superior to Indian pipe carvings, and adds, if this article was a work of the mound builders, intended for a telescopic tube, it is most interesting relic. An ancient Peruvian relic found in a few years. Let me redo that one here. Ancient Peruvian relic found. An ancient Peruvian relic found a few years since shows the figure of a man wrought in silver in the act of studying the heavens through such a tube. Similar tubes have been found among relics of the mound builders in Ohio and elsewhere. In Mexico, Captain Dupay saw sculptured on a peculiar stone structure the figure of a man making use of one. Astronomical devices were sculptured below the figure. This structure he supposed to have been used for observation of the stars. His account of it will begin of it. Let me redo that quickly. His account of it will be given in the chapter on Mexican and Central American ruins. The mound builders are The mound builders used large quantities of copper, such as that taken from the copper beds on Lake Superior, where the extensive mines yield copper not in the ore but as pure metal. It exists in those beds in immense masses, in small veins, and in separate lumps of various sizes. The mound builders worked this copper without smelting it. Spots of pure silver are frequently found studding the surface of Lake Superior copper and appearing as if welded to it but not alloyed with it. No other copper has this peculiarity, but copper with similar blotches of silver has been dug from the mounds. It was naturally inferred from this fact that the ancient people represented by these antiquities had some knowledge of the art of mining copper, which had been used in the copper region of Lake Superior. This inference finally became an ascertained fact. Their ancient mining works. The remains of their mining works were first discovered in 1848 by Mr. S. O. Knapp, agent of the Minnesota Mining Company, and in 1849 they were described by Dr. Charles T. Jackson in his geological report to the national government. Those described were found at the Minnesota mine in Upper Michigan. Better redo that. Excuse me. Those described were found at the Minnesota mine in Upper Michigan near Lake Superior. Their mining was chiefly surface work. That is to say, they worked the surface of the veins in open pits and trenches. At the Minnesota mine, the greatest depth of their excavations was 30 feet. And here, not far below the bottom of a trough like cavity, among a mass of leaves, sticks, and water, Mr. Knapp discovered a detached mass of copper weighing nearly 6 tons. It lay upon a cobwork of round logs or skids 6 or 8 inches in diameter, the ends of which showed plainly the marks of a small axe or cutting tool about 2.5 inches wide. They soon shriveled and decayed when exposed to the air. The mass of copper had been raised several feet along the foot of the lode, not lobe. Let me redo that quickly. Interesting. It's a lot of stone, or copper, metal. Let me just scroll up while I can. There we go. The mass of copper had been raised several feet along the foot of the lode on timbers by means of wedges. At this place was found a stone maul weighing 36 pounds and also a copper maul or sledge weighing 25 pounds. Just for reference, I was looking at sledges the other day and trying to find a 20-pound sledge, and I couldn't. The hardware stores only had 12 were the max, and these are double the weight of the sledges that they sell in our hardware stores today, or at least in my store. I'm sure you can get 20-pound ones too somewhere. Old trees showing 395 rings of annual growth stood in the debris, and the fallen and decayed trunks of trees of a former generation were seen lying across the pits. Figure 19 opposite presents a section of this mining shaft of the mound builders. A shows the mass of copper, B the bottom of the shaft, C the earth and debris which has been thrown out. The dark spots are masses of copper. The modern mining works are mostly confined to that part of the copper region known as the Quinoa Point. So I'm just going to go there now because there's the ancient mining shaft there. So that's A there, B, and C. So A was the masses of copper. So A right there was the masses of copper in the shaft. B was the bottom of the shaft down there. And C was the earth and debris which had been thrown out. So this is where all the earth and debris were. Interesting. All right, where am I? Okay, this is a projection. Okay. This is a projection of land extending into Lake Superior and described as having the shape of an immense horn. It is about 80 miles in length and at the place where it joins the mainland, about 45 miles in width. All through this district, whenever oops, all through check. All through this district, wherever modern miners have worked, remains of ancient mining works are abundant, and they are extensive on the adjacent island known as Isle Royal. The area covered by the ancient works is larger than that which includes the modern mines, for they are known to exist in the dense forests of other districts, to which the modern mining has not yet been extended. One remarkable mining excavation of the Mound Builders was found near the Waterbury mine. Here, in the face of a vertical bluff, was discovered an ancient artificial cavern like recess, 25 feet in horizontal length, 15 feet high, and 12 feet deep. In front of it is a pile of excavated rock on which are standing, in full size, the forest trees common to this region. Some of the blocks of stone removed from this recess would weigh 2 or 3 tons and must have required levers to get them out. Beneath the surface rubbish were the remains of a gutter or trough made of cedar, placed there to carry off water from the mine. Let me just check this out here. 45, okay. At the bottom of the excavation, a piece of white cedar timber was found on which the marks. At the bottom of the excavation, a piece of white cedar timber was found on which were the marks of an axe. Cedar shovels, mauls, copper gads or wedges, charcoal, and ashes were discovered, over which primeval forest trees had grown to full size. Modern mining on Lake Superior began effectively in 1845. The whole copper region has not been fully explored. Works of the ancient miners are found at all the mines of any importance, and they show remarkable skill in discovering and tracing actual veins of the metal. Colonel Charles Whittlesley, one of the best authorities on this point, believes the mound builders worked the copper beds of that region during a great length of time, and more of their works will undoubtedly be explored when the forests shall be cleared away from these portions of the copper region not yet worked by modern miners. So far as they have been traced, they everywhere show the same methods, the same implements, and the same peculiarities of both knowledge and lack of knowledge in the old miners. All right. Well, that was fast. I'm already at the end of chapter one. Well, I guess we'll stop there and do chapter two tomorrow, which is probably quite short. The antiquity of the mound builders. So, yeah, thank you very much. Just stop sharing that now for a few minutes. And thank you. And like and smash that subscribe button and all that stuff. Check out all our other works in there, Audible, Spotify as well, um, on podcast, adultbrain.ca, and all the other books on this channel. So share the channel, help us out. And if you want more of these live reads, they're just in the live tab there. This will be like a string of these ones for this book until I finish it. So thanks for being here. Love you and see you again.